Welcome to the 2040 show. 20 questions, 40 minutes, and the real stories behind the people we think we know. Today's guest is Niyati Dave, a woman whose journey cuts across continents and careers, from lecturing in India to starting over in the UK and finding her place in the world of innovation. It's a story of grit, reinvention, and quiet courage. At the 2040 show, it's the person behind the profession that matters the most. So let's find out. Niyati, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on this show. I'm really excited.
Look, I've got to start with this, right? Your name sounds like a very, classic uh, Bollywood actress name, and Niyati Dave. I could sort of see it on billboards everywhere. So can you start by explaining, just the meaning of your name? And also, I'm also interested to know what I perceive to be a non-English person with an English sounding surname, right? So you've got your surname is Dave. So I'd like to understand the story behind that. So please, but first, start by explaining the meaning of your name.
Yes, of course. No, in the first place, thank you. When you say that it does sound like a Bollywood name, I'm really kind of glad to hear that. So Niyati in Hindi or Gujarati, it means destiny. So lot
Hmm.
of the times, you would hear this name come in a lot of like mythological series or mythological plays, where they say that, you come with your own destiny, or maybe you are the one that, builds your own destiny. So I think that's the meaning of my name. But my last name, or like my family name, traditionally in India, it's called Dave. So I come from western part of India, which is Gujarat, and I was born in a city called Rajkot. So that's where this last name is really, really common and popular. But I was equally amazed to see that this last name is really popular here in these parts of the world as well. And people tend to call it Dave and not the way, but nevertheless, I'm really pleased that at least my last name is very popular here. So a lot of the times, because the pronunciations are pretty typical for a lot of like names that come from India, and people residing here might find it a bit challenging to pronounce the name. They usually go with like the last name. So in India, I
Hmm.
think, as you might already be aware, India is a very kind of multicultural and diverse country, and we have a lot of like religions that reside in India. So I am a Hindu, and within Hindu there are a lot of different other subcastes. So one of them is called Brahmin. Traditionally, Brahmins are the people who usually are related to a profession of teaching or chanting, or they
Hmm.
are more like God's favorite, as we put. So, in like the caste and the religion system, if you look at the pyramid, they are believed to be like the topmost. Mythologically, there used to be like three or four different segments, and one was Brahmin, which was more into education and, all of those kind of professions. There was one which was like a warrior community, which used to, in the olden times, fight war and do everything around that side. There used to be one community who used to be more like entrepreneurial or business. So they are called as Banyas. Most of the businessmen that you would see in and around India are from that community. So it could be like
Wow.
Jain, Marwari, or Banya. They are
Hmm.
traditionally known to be the best business person. And then the fourth community is actually the people who really work. So the worker class, they are like the pillar of any society. They do all of the brilliant
Hmm.
jobs, like day-to-day jobs that we imagine is kind of a small work, but it is really a lot of work. So, yeah, that's traditionally how in
Hmm.
India the different cultures, communities, and religion is, and it
Fascinating.
is associated generally with the last name of people. So, yeah, that's a
Right.
bit of
So
context.
amazing. No, no, that's brilliant, and I'd like to delve more into that actually later on. But that's really, really fascinating way to start. But I'd like now, for just before we go further in, that if we were perhaps meeting for the first time, how would you describe who you are, where you're from? I know you've touched a little bit about it, but something perhaps unique about you. I'd like to know.
Of course. So, if we were meeting for the first time, I'm really proud of the fact that I represent India and its culture in so many ways. And what is really, I would say, unique about me is that I am open to experiences. Um, I have been across different geographies. I have been across different kind of profession that has helped me become more humble, more molded, more open to um, different cultures, being more open to experiences. So I think that is something I'm really, really excited about. And with all of that, what I'm really passionate about is to be able to connect all those dots and to be able to bring those insights from the other world and connecting it to where I'm now and making an impact, which is kind of sewing or bridging, two different worlds of mine. So, for example, I was into academia, which was a completely different profession. And then I moved into working with a startup, which was a completely different experience. For a bit, I was also doing a side gig as a tour manager where I used to take a bunch of like 60, 65 people on a travel journey for 3, 4 days and made that experience. So I think I am really proud of the fact that I got an opportunity to experiment with a lot of these things. Usually people pick something up and then they tend to do it for the whole of their life. I'm really fortunate that
Hmm.
I got an opportunity to explore different things. They
Yeah.
possibly that was not something that I had actually envisioned for myself. But now that I look back, I'm like, wow, this is such a brilliant opportunity to be able to do that and to experience new things. So yeah, that's really fascinating to me.
That's amazing. And what I'd also like to explore is take you back, growing up in India, as a young woman. If you take me further back, what's your earliest memory of growing up in India?
So, as a kid, I used to be very, very introvert. I used to think that, okay, getting the best, like education, getting the best score in an exam is it. But, I think I had a very, very kind of narrow focus as a student, and as a person in turn, I was really, really introvert. It's only when I moved away from my family, kind of spread my wings out of that cocoon, completely on my own to study, is when I realized that, oh no, I actually am not an introvert, but I am more a person who is a mix between introvert and extrovert. There are some things which
Mm,
I'm really kind of excited about, and you can see that in my work, you can see that on my face, you can see that in my voice, in the way I talk. But
mhm,
there are some things I really kind of don't want to do, or some kind of occasions of people that I don't want to be around, or I don't enjoy being around. So I'm like, okay, I'll still be there, but I'll be quiet. So that was me growing up as a person. But the earliest memories of me as a as a youngest daughter of my family was that I'm really pampered and really protected in the ways. Like even if I'm just round the corner in my building, my father would stay awake to say, "Oh, please call me when you like step inside your house." So that's the kind
mhm.
of protected person I used to be. So I think at some point, inherently, I kind of tend to get that that dependencies on someone, like be it my parents or be it my friends, that oh, I should have someone to like ask me or care about me or things like those. I really
Mm,
loved that because that's how I've been raised. I'm like, oh, if I'm asking a person to send me a message once they reach home, is it really a form of
mm,
caring? So yeah,
mm,
those were like few things in terms of like my education, my family. I also really recall being kind of a person who didn't have too many friends, but had very selected friends. And then it was, or rather I would say it still is, between like
mm,
0 and 100. So in my mind, my
mm,
world is all black and white. So there is no gray, which isn't the reality, but that's how
mm.
I am. I
Yeah.
always feel that either I'm not there or I'm 100% there. So there is no like, in between kind of a thing. I don't really enjoy, uh, being like around people who just be for the sake of it. I'm like, okay, if I have to be there, I need to know everything about you. I need to be at a comfortable position to be sharing everything
Mm.
about me. So, yeah, that's how I'm as a person. And sometimes it's
Mm,
challenging professionally to be like that. But,
mm,
I think
mm,
over a period of time, as you grow from your experiences, you do learn that,
mm.
you need to have a median. You need to have something in between.
And sort of coming back to sort of those early memories, I mean, at a very young age, was there any particular career or, job that came to mind? Given the fact that, as you explained earlier, that, sometimes your surname, your cultural heritage, in a way, somehow defines the sort of profession that you go into because of,
Yeah.
it seems to be with a caste system. Now, were they things as a young lady that you thought, that's the sort of job I'd like to do, or was there someone in your life that sort of inspired you in a way, to go in a particular direction?
Yes. So I always was really passionate about traveling, exploring, having those experiences, going to new places.
Mm,
And I always wanted to be in more, I would say, on the go careers, like being an air hostess or being a pilot.
wow.
And that's something I always wanted to kind of do as a kid for a very long time, but I
Mm,
never really got to it because, everybody in my family was into teaching. So my mother, my father, my grandfather, my grandmother, both like from the maternal and the paternal sides were into teaching. So,
mm,
I had grown up to see that. And I also had kind of, in a way, been kind of pushed to do that. I do really enjoy because at the core of anything that I do, I think my heart is into the fact that I should be able to make some form of impact. I should be able to see like things
mm,
start to end. That is very important for me to kind of close the loop and complete the process. So I really got opportunities to do that in teaching. So from that angle, I do get that it's really nice. Also, I'm naturally um, very excited to learn new things. And as a teacher, this gives there are a lot of opportunities where, rather than you teaching students, students teach a lot to you.
mm.
So I think I was
Yeah.
really
Mhm,
excited about those. So it's not that I didn't enjoy being into teaching or I didn't enjoy any of the professions that I took. It's just about, the kind of regret that I have that I never really tried being an air hostess or being like a
yeah.
pilot and have those kind of very, on the go, quick, exciting career where there is no like, there is so much of ambiguity. There is no like a strict, 9 to 5
Mm,
routine or things like those. So yeah, that is
mm.
something possibly if I get a chance still in my life, I would love to explore that.
Yeah, I wonder, and how I wonder how your family would have felt if perhaps at a young age you came to them and said, "Look, I want to be a air hostess. I don't want to be a lecturer, but I want to be an air hostess." I mean, how would they, how would your parents take that?
Oh, no, no. They wouldn't really take it very well because traditionally, in India, I think this is something that most of the female from India would really relate to, especially the ones who are in like
Mm,
my age bracket, would be you basically not doing as your parents expect you to do is a form of a disrespect, or you questioning as to like, why should I
mm,
do it just because you did it, kind of a thing, is kind of a disrespect. And that's more like a cultural thing back in India. So
mm,
I think, yeah, if I would have gone back to say that, oh, I don't want to be into teaching, I want to do something that I want, it wouldn't have gone very well. They were very supportive of my career, but that's only when it was
mm.
as per their
In
expectations
alignment.
in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, no, that's I can imagine that because I'm from an African background and it's a very similar kind of value system where,
Right.
they believe that, a real job is, engineering, a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, and that's pretty
Yeah.
much it. You can't, everything else is failure, as they say. So, and
Yeah.
that's the background. But it's interesting. No, no, no. Thanks for sharing that. You said earlier you started in sort of you started as a lecturer, and then you sort of transitioned into some sort of NGO work. Is that right? Sort of working with organizations that help with funding. Can
Yeah.
you sort of talk a bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So, I was really, like I said, passionate about taking things from start to end. And that
Mm,
is one of the reasons I did like my PhD into understanding what is like startup ecosystem, and then what do startups actually do to get the right kind of funding, who are the people or organizations who give them right kind of funding. And that is when I
mm,
understood that, okay, there's a lot of work which is done on like the funding with the startups receive at the later stage when they are really popular, established, when they have financials to show out to the world and prove that, oh, they are really doing great, that traction is there. But I think what was really challenging for startups was that they did not get the finance very early on when they didn't have a lot of these crazy numbers to say that, oh, they are really doing great. They needed those few people to be able to trust them to say, okay, here's a pot of money. I trust your work. I trust your
mm,
product. I trust you as a
mm,
team, and go take this money, run with it, and give that kind of the, return that you want. So those kind of angel investors was something that really excited me, and that's where I did my doctorate study to say, okay, how do these role of angel investors change from time to time as the startups grow? So I,
mm,
from academia, I started to work with a startup itself because I myself never really had a startup of my own. That is something that I want to do
mm,
as an aspiration, but I'd never
mm,
really had a startup of my own. So I was like, okay, if I'm talking about startups, I need to work with a startup to be able to understand what do they do.
mm,
So that's where I started to work with a startup who in turn was helping other Africa-based startup to get that initial investments, and it was focused on gender lens investing. So um, it was focused on women kind of startups and social startups which made an impact. So
mhm. Right.
that's where I started to work when I moved from India to the UK after I got married in 2019. So
Mm,
I took this as an opportunity to do something entrepreneurial, take that risk because I got the opportunity to do so. And that was something I did for a good 2.5 years, right during the time of, COVID and everything that was around. COVID does seem like
mm.
a long memory now that I talk, but yeah, it's not that long, I believe. We are past COVID.
True. So you talked about earlier that as an aspiration, running your own sort of project is something that you would have loved to have done. I mean,
Yeah.
what would you, if you had the opportunity, what would you have actually done?
Yeah, so there is like a very good intersection of things that I love. So I'm really passionate about like food. So
Mm,
in a way, I became more passionate about food when I moved to the UK because I realized, oh, there is so much that is what the world has not seen about like Indian food. And I'm also as a person very, very kind of I would say snacky person. I keep snacking things. I don't
mhm.
really have like just 2 meals a day kind of a thing. I keep snacking throughout the day.
Right.
So I did find that there are very less options for healthy snacking here in the UK. So either you can go
Mm,
with like something that is made from potato, even if that's baked. It's like something
mm,
made from potato, or you could go with like fruits and nuts and things like those. So when I talk about snacking in my mind, I'm like, I want to have something healthier. It wouldn't be a fruit.
mm.
If I'm really snackish, I wouldn't go pick up fruit because like that's way too healthy in my mind. And so, if I would get a chance to do something, it would be an intersection of starting a company which is into like healthier snacking. So there are a lot of snacks in India which are really, really very healthy. They are also very tasty and they are not sweet. So I'm not a big fan of having like an oats bar or something when I'm hungry. It has to be something more savory. So I think yeah, that is something where what I would go for if I get an opportunity to have like my own startup.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Earlier you said that you obviously started your career in India. You worked in India as a lecturer, and then you eventually moved to the UK when you got married. And so I'm interested to know, what was your expectation, in a way, expectation versus reality. So this is what
Mhm.
you thought of England was going to be like, and then you arrived, and how did
Yeah.
that go for you?
Oh, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking. I think moving to the UK has made me more humble in all good ways, I must say. Because back
Mm,
in India, when I was a lecturer, you are the center of attention always because you are amidst like a class of students, 60 odd students looking at you, respecting you. And in India, especially, teachers get a lot of love and respect from the students. So that's how
mhm,
I had been like always at the center of kind of attention and love and everything from all of my students. And the university where I was teaching was really, really popular back in like my whole state. So anybody to whom I talked to and said, "Oh, I work as a lecturer in this university," and they were really amazed, like, "Oh, wow, you are a lecturer, and that must be so great," and things like those. So in a way, in simply put, it had got to my head. So when I moved to the UK, I did feel that my identity was lost because half of the times people here in the UK obviously didn't have any reference to like what university I'm talking
mm,
about, what does it mean to be like a person who is always so financially independent, managing things on his or her own way, and then moving to the UK to become like a completely dependent person on his or her partner. And you know this was a
mm,
completely kind of very, very different than what I thought. I had been like, I have been having so many relatives and cousins who are into a different country, and I have been always hearing good things. I never really came to understand like, oh, what does it mean in terms of struggles? So when I came here, I was like,
mm,
nobody knows me. I don't have a job. I'm not now financially independent. A lot of the times it was new place, new culture. So I didn't really know that, oh, where should I go? What should I do? Half of the times I was dependent on my partner to be coming with
mm,
me, and so that we could go out, have those experiences, try new places. Um, as simple as like getting groceries or maybe going on the underground train. So all of these things,
mm,
I naturally was a very, very independent person because I stayed away from my family for a good like 8, 9 years of my life. And from that to be switching
mhm,
to a place that's completely new and then being dependent in all the ways at the same time on a different person felt like
mm,
very, very challenging and like loss of identity and in a way very, very kind of depressing. So at this point, when I reflect now
mm,
on that phase of like good 2.5 years that was really, really challenging for me, I did realize that, oh, the world is so much more big than your job. So you shouldn't really, attach your identity to your job. Your identity and your job are like two different things. You are a person much bigger
mm,
than your work. Obviously, work is a big
mm,
part in your life in a lot of the ways your colleagues, your friends, your kind of experiences are shaped up by your work. But you should
mm,
have something bigger than your work because if you just kind of like, are synonymous to your work. If someday you don't work,
mhm,
it would mean that you are nothing, which is not the case. You are like everything. You are much
mm.
beyond your work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is something that I learned in, I must say, a hard way. And I just moved
Mm,
to the UK in 2019 and then 2020 there was COVID, which made things really,
right.
really more difficult for me because, I couldn't go out. I couldn't make new
Mm,
friends. There were times where I felt that, oh, is it even worth it staying away so far from the family? Because it's so hard to then, if there is any emergency, God forbid, for you to travel to India because there were so many restrictions and life turned out to be so fickle. Like the same person that I was talking to yesterday might, not be around today because COVID.
mm,
So, yeah, there were a few
yeah.
things that were happening at the same time. There were some, in my control, but a lot more not in my control. So, yeah, that's something I
Mm,
learned, then to say, oh, is there something that is it in my control? Can I do anything about it? If not, I shouldn't be bothered. I shouldn't be bothered. I mean, I could for a few minutes,
yeah.
but I need to bring myself from that space to say, oh, you shouldn't be bothered about it because you can't really do anything. So, yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of things.
Wow.
Moving to a
Hmm.
new country can kind
Yeah.
of teach you so many things, which possibly years
Oh,
of
yes.
experience or years of being in the same kind of country cannot teach you. And that's why I think it's important that
Yeah.
people leave their homes, they travel. It's difficult,
Hmm.
but that gives you learning that is going to stay with you for the whole life, that will
Hmm.
shape you up in ways that you can't think.
Yeah, no, no, that's fascinating. I mean, in terms, it's really interesting what you said about your whole identity was wrapped up around your job, your career from India, and in a place where, in a country where, lecturers were held at such high esteem. It's very similar to sort of my background in Nigeria as well, where
Mhm.
lecturers are seen as the sort of high and mighty, and they hold a very really admirable position in society as lecturers. That was wrapped up in your identity. You've come
Yeah,
to England, a new country, and they don't seem to have those sort of associations, right, with lecturers or any kind of. So that would have been difficult, and you would
yeah,
have had a real hit on your sort of your sense of self, right? So, and you came to realize that, okay, ultimately that you have to divorce your career from your your personality, basically your person,
yeah,
and because you can you will eventually transition into other roles, into other jobs, but you are you, right? And you have to keep growing as a person.
exactly.
I'm interested to know. So at what point then you've been in England for a few years, and then what was the next step for you after being in England for a period of time?
So, to be honest, I had stopped thinking about the next step. All I knew was like I wanted to work, and because I wanted
Mm,
to be financially independent, and I
mm,
wanted myself to do something that made impact in the ways that I can see. So, I did. I didn't really have any plan. I was open to everything. And I think that was the most fun part about, not having a plan. And that's where, as a side gig, what I did was I took a training as a tour manager. So there is this very popular tour group from India who
Mm.
take the Indian community on different tours around like the UK and the Europe. So I was like, okay,
Oh.
I had this old aspiration to do a job or to be in a profession that is on the go. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll start with that. And I took this training, and from being a lecturer to being a tour guide, I started like from zero. I learned new things. In many ways, it was very similar to how I was dealing with students. So I started to
Mm.
enjoy that because, okay, I was seeing new places, but again, I was with like a group of people who really looked up to me, who depended on me. And I was back in like, limelight saying, oh, there is a group of like 60 people whom I'm leading. So, yeah, it was, I mean, very unconventional, but that is something I'm really proud of, kind of doing. So I think
Mm.
a lot of AI and machine learning and all of these things around us, one of the qualities or one of the skills that is always going to make you have that competitive edge is going to be fluid. So I think it's really important that you have that fluidness in you, and you have that cognitive kind of openness to be able to mold your experiences or to be able to do things um, in a very different way. So there are a lot of
Mm.
transferable skills that I brought from my kind of profession back in India to this profession. So yeah, I think it was then I realized that it's so important uh, to unlearn than it is to learn, because a lot of the
Mm.
times you tend to kind of carry that whole baggage of experiences with you, which doesn't allow you to become fluid and doesn't allow you to learn
Mm.
new things. So you need to kind of unlearn things very, very quickly and have that kind of acceptance to say that oh, okay, no, I'm going to like do similar things as I did in my previous kind of work in this role. There is a lot of similarity. There is a lot of like differences which I
Mhm.
can learn, but similarities which I can like unlearn and grasp hold of, this role. So yeah, that is
Mm.
something moving to the UK taught me, because otherwise I would have still been into academia doing the same things in all the same ways, which would have been great too. But I think
Yeah.
this is something that makes me unique, that makes me very different from rest of the people. And I think
Mm.
that's what my identity is. Now I'm like, oh, I have learned so many things over and over again. I have unlearned so many things over and over again, that even if I'm put in a
Mm.
very different environment, I know I'll be able to do it because I've done it so many times. It doesn't matter what environment that is,
Yeah.
but oh, I will survive
Mhm.
because I have been working with different cultures, different, different kind of professions, and that has made me like more flexible, more fluid, more cognitive, like
Mhm.
present. So yeah, that's a fun bit.
Ah. Now, on a side note, as you were speaking there, I was sort of interested to know. I tend to ask migrants this question, but how long did it take you to get used to British food? Coming from a country where there's a lot of spices and flavors, and then you come to England and you're provided with
Yeah.
fish and chips. I mean, which is great, but how long did it take you to get used to it?
Well, to be honest, I would say I'm still not used to it, but it's just like just the variation of things which makes it really exciting.
Mhm.
So again,
Yeah.
being open to experiences is something that has been core to me. And I'm like, okay,
Mm.
any food, trying out at new different like restaurants or places has always been like an experience to me. So I don't see food as a food. I see the whole thing as an experience. So yeah, that's where I'm like, okay, I'm open to experience. I can try. If I don't like, I don't like. If I like, I like. So, um,
Mm.
one of the things that I realized was, I really used to love the pizzas that we have back in India. So they're very different from the ones that we have here. Um,
Oh, okay.
so it's still like the same thing. So there is like a flatbread and you put different veggies on it and you put like the marinara sauce on it and then the cheese and everything on it. But it's very different in terms of how it is baked and the taste and the kind of flatbread that they use. I used to
Mm.
hate the pizzas here. When I moved to the UK, I was like, no, I'm craving what I had back in India. And I want to have that pizza again.
Oh.
But I think now things have switched. I'm like, oh no, I really
Mm.
love a good Neapolitan sourdough pizza here. And now I crave those more than the ones I used to have in India. So,
Mm.
that,
Yeah.
that has changed. That has changed.
Yeah. You started a lecturer, you then worked in London as a kind of a tour operator, sort of helping people based in the UK. And then somehow you ended up in the utilities industry. So
Yeah.
tell us how that all happened.
Yeah, so after I did a bit of the supporting the startups with the gender lens thing, I moved into more full-time roles around innovation because again, to me, innovation is kind of an experience where you walk through like the creative bits, start to end. You explore what else could be experienced. So I moved into more innovation centric roles, and that's where my next kind of profession that I joined was core around innovation. But it was more from the consulting perspective, where we used to connect the
Mhm.
startups and the corporates because in many ways we feel that oh they both are competitors and if corporates are there startups cannot flourish or vice versa, but that's not the case. I think it's bringing them into the same ecosystem and coexisting and having those benefits of
Mhm.
getting the best of each other's strengths. So that's where I moved to that role, and I was working with a lot of Japanese based like organizations, corporates, and governments, helping them connect
Mhm.
to the different startups. So one of the projects that I did was with Tokyo Metropolitan Government, where they were really kind of promoting the Tokyo-based startup to move to like the UK, expand the market. Like obviously Japan has a very different culture and India has a very different culture and similarly UK has a
Mhm.
very different culture. So basically to be able to kind of see that difference, what would a consumer in the UK want? What are the legal and regulatory frameworks around UK if you want to do a business, et cetera, et cetera. So I did that which was really exciting. And in the process, I got opportunity to visit Tokyo. That could be like another story altogether. Tokyo is really amazing. And then after that, I did realize that I love innovation, but what I didn't have was the opportunity to take the process from start to end. So because you are a
Mhm.
consultant on the other side, there is only so much you can do. So once we kind of finalize the startups, organize like a pitch day, a demo day, showcase all of their strengths and kind of connect them with right people, our role is over. So that's where I felt that, okay, I'm not getting the exposure to the last piece of the puzzle where I'm like, okay, they met the investors, but what happens after that? Like, what's the next story? How do they actually adapt to the corporate that they are working for, etc.? And that's where I got the opportunity to move to the current like profession that I'm in, where my role is more based into an in-house innovation team, where I get an opportunity not
Right.
just to bring startups, but to also kind of take them through that process, co-develop the product and say, okay, this is how, you are integrated with the business as usual function. So, again, a completely different sector. I had never really worked into utility sector at all previously. So it was challenging, especially on the technical front, because the last I remember listening about hydrogen and methane and all these things was back in my science class in my school, which I never really paid attention to. And I was like, oh, where am I going to use this in my life? But like all of that is like backbiting me now to say, oh no, here you are using that pretty much every day for all your projects. So yeah, that was the transition.
Brilliant. I think one of the sort of the utilities industry, or especially the sort of innovation engineering type of world,
Mm-hmm.
is usually known for being very male dominated sort of sphere.
Yeah.
How did you sort of navigate that?
So I would say there were challenges. And I got really lucky with having right kind of people around me who really kind of supported me, um, gave that power to my voice, heard me patiently. So I was really lucky in a way that I got right kind of support and team around me, um, who didn't really demean like my cerebral strength or anything like that. They didn't really question it because I'm a female and I have a different gender than theirs. But what really helped me was to to be consistent, to keep trying, because there will be times where you would feel like, oh, this is not working, but that's exactly when you need to continue being consistent. So as a value or as a principle in my life, I think for me motivation is there, but I think what's important for me is to be consistent, to be dependable, and to be, do something in very disciplined way. Because motivation is just
Mm,
like a spike. Some days you are very motivated,
mm,
some days you are not, but discipline is nevertheless, going to be there and it's going to push you when motivation will not. So I think, um, trying to trying to remind all of these things to oneself may really make the difference. And once again, um I keep telling myself that, oh, I have survived in a different country, in a different environment, when
mhm.
I had nothing in my favor. If I could survive that, I could definitely survive this. Like, go on.
You succeeded as a lecturer. Again, you had great fun as a tour operator. You've sort of gone into the world of innovation, engineering, and things like that, which is great. And you appear to be succeeding there as well. Now, can you tell me, is there any time where you've tried something new and you've completely failed at? And how did you sort of navigate that, right? How do you deal with failure?
um yeah, I think for me, I wouldn't want to agree that failure is another way of learning, what wouldn't work. Like, that's too idealistic for
Mm.
me. I am definitely kind of in that phase where I'm taken aback by failure. I kind of have my lows. I kind of
Mm.
cry. I am not too sure if I want to continue. So all of these things are there, but I think what is, um, or rather, what has made it different for me is to be able to self-talk. So a lot of the times,
Mm.
I kind of, remember the times when things were really hard and I pushed through it. So I think that's like the reflection that I have. As a person, I do a lot of introspection and I do a lot of reflection. So introspection is at the times where, I need to change, but reflection is for especially those moments when I know that I did really good and I'm like, that gives me the motivation, or that gives me the power to kind of continue. So for me,
Mm.
all of these things have really been important. And a lot of times what I do is, for example, if I get a really good kind of message from my students, I tend to kind of keep it. And then when I am going through a failure, I kind of read it and I kind of think that, oh no, I did really make some difference in someone's life, even on a very small scale, but I did it. So that
Mm.
gives me kind of the encouragement or the power to do it again. So yeah, there was this one time when I did did kind of fail terribly. I was on a stage kind of talking to a bunch of different people, and there was like a very good video that I had found. Like this is, I'm talking about back in 2014, where like social media and videos and all of these things were not so kind of everywhere the way it is now. So, getting those kind of things really, I thought that would convey something in a more effective way. So, I had like a whole set of questions and whole set of discussion points after that video. And it turned out that IT was not like in my favor, and the video didn't go as planned. There was no like voice, and there was like this whole set of questions for next 20 minutes that I had prepared on that. So yeah, I felt really terrible, and I was like, oh, I should have a backup plan. Like, why did I not think of the fact that, oh, these IT tech might have its own challenges and it might not work? So, yeah, I think I didn't survive on that day. Like, I crashed, like, literally, I had my voice shaking and I had like teary eyes on the stage itself. But I think something that I learned from then was, like I should be prepared well in advance. I should have like a plan B. I shouldn't really rely on IT, and I should give like enough number of trials to be able to say, oh yes, okay, it will work. So yeah, I mean these were like small incidences, nothing really major, but yes, I think a lot of the times these small things kind of prep you for something really challenging and really bigger.
Yeah, I want to sort of shift gears a little bit to something you mentioned earlier, which right at the start, I think you sort of mentioned the fact that you were Hindu, and I wonder what role spirituality plays, and what sort of influences it has in your life, either personally or professionally.
Yeah, of course. I think I'm not a very religious person. So back in India, we have a whole set of like tradition of doing like worshiping God in a certain way, to be going to temple, to be fasting. I think I'm a person who looks for the why of things. So until and unless I'm
Hmm.
not convinced with like why, I wouldn't really do it for the sake of it. So a lot of the times I have been quizzing like the beliefs or the customs or the processes on this one question, why. But that said, I am a spiritual person, and for me, it it just means self talk, or it just means like remembering God, being good in your deeds, like don't hurt people unnecessarily with your actions or your deeds. I think that is something that brings me happiness and more aligned to, I would say, my higher self. So it's not like I I am into a particular kind of god, or I worship only that god.
Hmm.
I think it's more for me, it has been more about like universe, and a belief that, oh, universe is taking care of me. And if I really visualize something, if I really manifest something, um that will happen. That will really happen. So over the years, that is something that I have learned. Obviously, this has been more kind of core to me after like my 2 or 3 years of kind of that really dark phase when I moved to the UK. Like, not in the literal sense dark, but in so many ways that
Yeah.
it changed itself. um
Hmm.
so yeah, that's kind of spirituality to me. Back home, my parents are really kind of religious. My father is more spiritual, and I would say in a lot many ways, I think I try and do what my father does, because he has been like a role model. So if he does something in a certain way, I tend to get inspired by it. I'm kind of biased towards it, I must say. But again, as I have grown as a person, I have started to not take it as is. I try to quiz it with like, okay, why is it
Yeah.
good, or why is it bad? If I see the merits, I'll follow it. If I don't see the merits, I don't. Yeah.
Right. No, no, that's fair. That's fair. So tell me, what do you do for fun? You know, what's sort of entertainment for you?
Um, so I do a lot of like music, but I'm not very kind of constrained in terms of certain type of music. So I could do like a really, cliche Bollywood kind of music, but then, I could also do a lot of a very kind of different jazz or maybe a very, very kind of a party kind of a loud music. It depends on like my mood or something. But when I'm really, really sad or when I'm really, really happy, either ways, music is something I go back to. So yeah, I think
Mm,
one of the things that when I get time and that kind of window to be able to do that is to go back to music. I really want to learn how to play drums and flute. So yeah, that is something
mm.
I would want to do.
Awesome. We haven't got too much time left, but I've got a couple of more questions, if you don't mind.
Of course, yeah.
When you look back on your various chapters of your career so far, can you point to one or maybe a number of things where you can, things that you are incredibly proud of?
hmm
Um,
I think what I'm really proud of is I have been able to kind of inspire people across like all of my career. So back when I was a lecturer, it used to be like my students. Back when I was working with like startups, it used to be my fellow like colleagues and everyone. Um, I think my strength is to be able to be that fluid and adapt things, and to be open
mm,
to learn new things. So, I think that is something that I'm really proud of across like whole of my career. Um, what I'm really, I would say, w- what has been challenging for me is that because I'm a generalist and there is like so much diversity and spread of my career, I never really got, to experience that seniority or that, that kind of,
mhm,
I would say I'm not getting the right word for it though. Um,
mhm, mhm.
the kind of stability I would say that comes with like growing
Mm.
in a career. So I'm always
Yeah.
on like the go of, oh, what could I learn next? What could I learn next?
Mhm,
So
mm,
there is some time where people have been in a particular career for so long that they know the ins and outs of things. Um, I think
mm,
at some point I miss not having that.
mm,
I have like a
mm.
bit of everything and like a
Right.
mom, like master of none, jack of
Mm.
all kind of a situation.
Um, I'm mindful of maybe a young person watching this podcast, and I'd like you to perhaps address them and say,
Yeah.
what advice would you give someone young who's also aspiration, they have a lot of aspiration to be something in their life. What sort of advice would you give them in navigating some of the challenges that lies ahead?
Um, there'll only be like two things. One, just be true to yourself, be consistent, be disciplined, be dependable, and be open to experiences that would give you the competitive edge, which no kind of other skills would give you. Always be humble, always be humble. Like at some point, you might feel people are taking advantage of you being humble, but that's just them. Like you don't have to change yourself, and stop being humble just because they are not kind of, appreciative of how humble
Mm,
you are. And the second thing which I would say is, just vision, have this thing that if it doesn't matter to you in the next 5 years, don't worry about it now. Like in the moment, it might be a very big thing in your life. You might think, oh, like I screwed up a meeting or I didn't do really good in my grades or something like that. Learn from the experiences, but don't let it, hold you back. If you think that it won't matter in the next 5 years, it's not worth it.
mm. Oh. And that's, I think, a really great place to perhaps end the show. Niyati, this has been such a rich conversation. Thank you for taking us through your journey, your memories, and the values that continue to shape who you are today. I really appreciate your honesty and the depth that you've gone to, and I'm certain that our listeners will connect with you so much. And thank you once again for joining the 2040 show. And I hope you come back again to tell us more about the new sort of the new ventures that you're getting involved with in the future. But
Uh,
it's been thoroughly amazing speaking to you today. So thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, no, of course, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I really enjoyed talking. Like I was saying, it's very rare that you get an opportunity to kind of pause, reflect, and go back to your roots, and kind of
Mm.
take that high level view of your journey, how far you have made. So yeah, things like these are really, really encouraging and something that I would always look back on when I'm not doing well, or when I kind of want that motivation to fill me up. So yeah, no, thank you for having
Fantastic.
me, and yeah, I really enjoyed.